Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions for UFC 142 Aldo versus Mendes. This event will take place live January 14th, 2012 from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It'll feature 5 main card fights, including the main event featherweight title fight. I'll be doing predictions for all 5 fights there, plus 6 preliminaries. Now, the Grand Prix term is down to its final 4 competitors. The first round, our first event of the 4th round, is the Strikeforce Jardine or Rockhold versus Jardine event, which has not taken place yet, but I'll send congratulations out to all 4 competitors. Klub will advance to the 4th round. He will take on Marksman. On the other side of the bracket, the White Dragon, congratulations, advancing to face Kane Gotti. And Kane Gotti actually took out Kamikaze Overdrive in the 3rd round. Very tough matchup. I was playing under the name Team Takeover 316. In the 3 events, he won. We finished tied in the first one. He won the second one. I won by 1. I won the 3rd one by 1. We finished tied at 33 points apiece. And then he got the nod on the tiebreaker, more complete predictions. I needed Donald Cerrone to get a decision win in the final matchup to get a clear-cut win. Otherwise, I knew he won the tiebreaker. So congratulations to all 4 competitors, and best of luck in the 4th round. Make sure you get your predictions in. Now, before moving on to my picks, Sports Interaction, as always, providing the odds of this event. So, thank you very much to them. Please check out that betting site, a fantastic site to get all your betting options in. MMABettingOdds.com, a great tool to make sure you maximize the amount of cash flow you can bring in as a result of your MMA betting, online betting. MMACrips.com, thank you very much for posting my videos. And another site, CageFighter.co, new partnership with Kamikaze Overdrive. They'll be hosting my videos as well. Thank you very much to CageFighter.co. I think that's enough for me. We got lots of predictions, lots to talk about today, so let's get right into my preliminary picks. All right, let's take a look at my preliminary picks. There are 6 of them. We're going to kick it off with Antonio Carvalho versus Felipe Arantes. Now, Arantes saw his winning streak come to an end in his UFC debut, and Carvalho is making his first appearance inside the octagon with this matchup. I was really impressed with Arantes in his first fight, despite the fact that he lost. Carvalho is a solid vet, but Arantes should have advantages in striking and speed, and he will be at home for this fight, so I'm going to take Felipe Arantes by knockout. Up next, Fabio Maldonado versus Ciao Magalhães. Magalhães got the call after Stanislav Nedkov had to pull out of this matchup. In the footage I've seen of him, he appears to be an interesting prospect, but this is a huge step up in competition. Maldonado has significant experience advantages and should be more comfortable in the cage overall. Fabio's boxing has looked absolutely fantastic, while Magalhães, he's a talented striker in his own right, but I just like the veteran in this matchup. I'm going to take Fabio Maldonado to win this one by knockout. Moving next to the welterweight division, Mike Pyle versus Ricardo Funch. In Funch's 2 UFC bouts, he's had a lot of trouble dealing with opponents' grappling. Johnny Hendricks was able to complete 7 takedowns, and Claude Patrick dominated him on the ground and eventually earned the submission victory. Now, Mike Pyle is a very underrated grappler, and I think he will rebound from the thrashing he took at the hands of Rory McDonald, and I'm going to take Mike Pyle by decision. Moving now, Yuri Alcantara versus Michihiro Omagawa. Now, Omagawa earned his first UFC win in 5 tries, defeating Jason Young the last time we saw him. Against Young, he was able to use his judo background to counteract Young's aggressive striking. Alcantara is going to have a 7.5-inch reach advantage, and he should also have a speed advantage. The difference between this fight and Omagawa's last fight is that Alcantara will have the grappling skills to compete and defend against Omagawa, and he is the better striker. Yuri Alcantara takes this one by a close decision. Up next, Gabriel Gonzaga versus Inaldo Oliveira. Now, this is a returning UFC vet versus an undefeated fighter making his debut. Oliveira stands 6'7", which is huge, but he really isn't a physically imposing fighter. He has the majority of his wins by TKO, but is also quite capable on the ground. Now, Gonzaga looked uninspired in his UFC bout and essentially retired, but he looked a lot better after a year away when he returned for 1 fight. Oliveira will be fighting for the 8th time in just over a year, but I really think the UFC jitters could play a role. I'm going to take Gabe Gonzaga by knockout. And finally, Sam Stout versus Thiago Tavares. Now, both guys are coming off knockout wins. Stout is easily the more technical striker, while Tavares' grappling and submission game could really be a problem for the Canadian. Sammy has excellent takedown defense at 76%, and even though Thiago's striking has been improving, it should still be the advantage for Stout to keep it standing. Stout earned his first UFC knockout against Yves Edwards the last time we saw him, and I have a feeling he might get a second here, so I'm going to take Sammy Stout by knockout and to continue adding to his nickname of Hands of Stone. And those are my preliminary picks. Let's get to the main card. We kickstart the pay-per-view in the lightweight division, and this matchup is my certified overdrive fight of the night. In the lightweight division, 15-3 Terry Etim will battle undefeated Brazilian 9-0 Edson Jr. Barbosa. Etim made quick work of his last opponent, earning a submission win in 15 seconds, while the last time we saw Barbosa, he pushed his UFC record to a perfect 3-0 with a win over Ross Pearson. Barbosa entered the UFC with 5 knockouts and 1 submission victory. In his octagon debut, he showcased his lethal striking skills, eventually earning a TKO as the result of leg kicks, the second time he's done this in his career. Barbosa lands 3.56 strikes per minute, but with an underwhelming 35% striking accuracy. He utilizes a variety of kicks. Against Pearson, he used a spinning back kick, a front kick, body and low kicks, and against Anthony Njokuani, Edson connected with a perfectly executed wheel kick. The key to Barbosa's leg strikes is his speed. He's able to attack so quickly that his opponent is simply unable to avoid them. Against Pearson, he landed a vicious body kick and then dropped him with a right hand that he followed it with. He hurt Njokuani with his right and had continued success with vicious body shots. Now, Terry Etim, although lacking in the knockout category, is also an accomplished striker. His arsenal of kicks is comparable to Barbosa's. His leg strikes are powerful. He will punish his opponent's lead leg, and he stopped Brian Cobb with a head kick. Etim has power in his hands, especially a straight right. He gets excellent extension and really turns into the punch, maximizing the impact. He has exceptional footwork, constantly moving and changing angles while pushing forward. He earned a decision victory over a very talented striker in Sammy Stout, getting the better of the exchanges overall 69-56. Etim is fast, but I still give the edge to Barbosa in speed, and overall I would give the Brazilian the edge with his Muay Thai. On the ground, Barbosa only has the 1 submission, but he is a BJJ purple belt and will incorporate takedowns. Etim's ground game is impressive with 12 submission victories. He's a black belt in luta livre, which is an offshoot of catch wrestling. He has rolled with some pretty skilled grapplers in the past, but he was submitted by Rafael dos Anjos and struggled with the takedowns of Gleison Tibau, both BJJ black belts. Barbosa will have a slight reach advantage in this fight, but Etim will be the taller fighter and effectively uses his long limbs in both the striking and on the mat. Now, despite Barbosa's 3 UFC victories, he has landed less strikes than each of his opponents. Njokuani had success in the second half of the fight when he used pressure to keep him backing up, and Ross Pearson implemented a similar game plan, not allowing Barbosa to set up his strikes. The reason the Brazilian still earned the W was the overall effectiveness of his attack. But Edson isn't nearly as effective when he is striking while moving backwards. Like Pearson, I expect Etim to be the aggressor, but the difference will be Etim's effectiveness of his strikes, and if he can outland Barbosa, like his last opponents, he should be able to steal this fight. This is going to be a war, can't put it any simpler than that, and picking against a Brazilian in Brazil has proven faulty in the past, but I'm going to do it here. I'm going to take Terry Etim to defeat Edson Barbosa by decision. In the welterweight division, 13-1 Eric Silva will battle 22-6 Carlo Prater. Eric Silva began his UFC career with an impressive first-round knockout of Luis Ramos, while Carlo Prater is making his UFC debut. Following his extraordinary debut, many people are crowning Eric Silva as the future of the division. He's a very well-rounded fighter, holding a black belt in both judo and jiu-jitsu, in addition to his dangerous striking. In his debut against Luis Ramos, although it only took him 40 seconds, Silva showcased some very impressive footwork, changing angles before engaging with a left jab that then set up his bomb of a right hand. He has had success in the past with his right, and he also has showcased a wide variety of kicks. One of the biggest question marks surrounding Silva is his cardio. He has gone into the third round 4 times in 15 fights, but I've seen footage where his cardio looked less than stellar. He appeared tired in his fight with Gilda Faritas. He was getting controlled on the mat in that matchup until he landed a body kick that was then followed by a submission win for himself. He has shown decent takedown defense and a good partly be attributed to his judo background, but again, if his endurance isn't top-notch, he becomes much more vulnerable to being taken down.
Now that could be a huge issue against Carlo Prater, as Prater has an extensive grappling background. He's a BJJ and Luta Livre black belt, as well as a judo brown belt. He has 16 career submission wins, including wins over Pat Healy and Melvin Gillard. His last 4 victories have all come by submission and a variety of submissions. He won those fights by Anaconda choke, Kimura, rear naked choke, and a guillotine. His Anaconda choke victory over Brian Travers while fighting for Strikeforce only took him 38 seconds, where he was able to quickly lock in and finish the maneuver with only the smallest of openings. Prater's takedown defense isn't great, but this can be partially attributed to how comfortable he is on his back. Now, as good as he is on the ground, he has been dominated before. Reza Madaya won a decision by continually landing his takedown attempts and controlling Prater on the mat. Drew Fickett dominated Prater on the ground and eventually submitted him, and Carlos Condit had similar success at WEC 32, earning the submission. Now, I haven't seen a lot of his striking, but nothing really stands out to me as overly exceptional. He only has 2 knockouts in his career,
And overall, I give the edge to Eric Silva in this department. Prater has more experience, and the issue of Silva gassing and getting controlled on the mat is a legitimate possibility. That being said, I like what Silva's capable of. He should be able to match Prater's jiu-jitsu, and Silva should also be the superior judo player. And if this is the case, Silva should be able to keep the fight where he has the greatest advantage, and that is standing. Prater has only been knocked out once, but Silva has serious power, so my prediction is Eric Silva to defeat Carlo Prater by knockout. Moving to 185, Mike the Master of Disaster, Massenzio 13-5, faces 22-3 Husamar Filkino Palhares. Palhares has won 2 in a row and 5 of his last 6, while Massenzio looked fantastic, earning a victory over Steve Cantwell at UFC 136. Now, there is really no secret what Husamar Palhares will be looking for in this matchup, which is a submission. Both Husamar and Mike Massenzio are BJJ black belts, but not nearly on the same level. Husamar has won the majority of his fights by tap-out, and his BJJ skills have been compared to that of a striker, for example, a Junior Dos Santos, who can end a fight with one punch. The combination of skill and Husamar's incredible power gives him the remarkable ability to create submission opportunities out of almost anywhere. He specializes in attacking legs, his heel hooks and knee bars, especially with heel hooks and knee bars, earning 6 submissions in this manner. His ground skills create hesitation in even the most seasoned grapplers. Dan Henderson wanted absolutely nothing to do with his ground game, and second-degree BJJ black belt Nate Marquardt seemed really worrisome to engage the Brazilian. Against Henderson, Palhares showed his uncanny strength, landing a huge slam and threatened with a couple of submissions. While when he took on Marquardt, Husamar initiated a leg lock almost instantly after the fight hit the ground. Now, his takedowns are incredibly hard to defend. He sets them up with his strikes, and he will pull guard and either sweep or instigate a scramble, and if he can get in the north-south position, he will almost always attack a leg. Now, Mike Massenzio, he's far from helpless on the ground. As mentioned above, he is a BJJ black belt and a successful collegiate wrestler. He has 6 submission wins in his career, and he has been tapped out twice. Those 2 submission losses are of great concern. The first was by knee bar against Daniel Villafort, and the second by triangle against Brian Stan. Now, the Villafort defeat shows he is vulnerable to leg-based submissions and getting caught in a triangle while in the guard against a relatively inexperienced Brian Stan really does not instill a lot of confidence. If Massenzio is going to win this fight, his best bet is to keep it standing, where he will have the greatest advantage. He showed improved striking against Steve Cantwell. His biggest weapons are a very powerful left hook and a nice uppercut, which did a damage every time it landed on Cantwell. Unfortunately, Massenzio's best offense comes when he closes the distance with his opponent and attacks them against the cage, which will give Palhares ample opportunity to take the fight to the ground. Husamar's striking is improving significantly. He hurt Dan Miller first with a front kick and then a head kick, and he will also throw a big overhand right and simply has uncanny power. Now, Miller did appear to hurt Husamar with a punch, so his chin might be a little questionable if Massenzio can test it. Husamar has a few mental hiccups in the cage, which is also quite worrisome, but statistically, he lands 46% of his takedown attempts, resulting in 4.23 takedowns per fight and 3.83 attempted submissions per 15 minutes. Those are some freaking scary numbers, so my prediction is Husamar Palhares to defeat Mike Massenzio by submission. In the co-main event of the night, Vitor the Phenom Belfort 20-9 will take on 10-3 Anthony Rumble Johnson in the middleweight division. Vitor has won 6 of his last 7, while Johnson has taken 5 of his last 6. Now, this is a very interesting matchup as Anthony Johnson is making his middleweight debut after spending his entire career as an absolutely gigantic welterweight, and this really throws an unknown element into this prediction. Now, comparing the numbers, both fighters are predominantly knockout artists, with each man ending almost 50% of their fights by KO. The major difference is the quality of opponent. Belfort has KO'd fighters like Yoshihiro Akiyama, Rich Franklin, and he became the first man to stop a prime Vanderlei Silva, while the biggest name on Rumble's record is probably Charlie Brenneman. Vitor has some of the fastest hands in MMA. He uses his speed to attack while the opposition simply crumbles under the pressure. He has a lot of power in his left. He will throw kicks as well, but when it comes right down to it, his hands are the main feature. Now, Rumble's striking repertoire is a little more diverse. He too has big power in his hands, but he has a couple of head kick victories. His striking is quite powerful, but it is a little stiff juxtaposed to Vitor's, who's clearly the more technically gifted striker. Belfort should be the faster fighter, but Johnson is going to have a 4-inch reach advantage along with 2 inches of height. Now, Vitor's patient. He opts to pick his punches, looking for quality over quantity, landing an average of 1.34 strikes per minute. I expect Vitor to stay on the outside, waiting for his openings, and then closing the distance with speed. Johnson will most likely want to stay away from the Brazilian's power, using his kicks and a long left jab to create separation. Now on the ground, Vitor is the BJJ black belt, but with only 2 submission victories. Conversely, Rumble's a wrestler, but submissions have counted for 2 of his 3 losses. If this fight goes to the mat, it will most likely be initiated by Rumble. Anthony completed 4 of 5 takedowns and smothered Dan Hardy for almost 15 minutes. In that bout, he did a nice job of timing Hardy's strikes and shooting underneath them. His numbers are solid, landing 76% of his attempts and roughly 3 takedowns per fight. Belfort has experience with wrestlers, having fought Tito Ortiz, Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, and Dan Henderson, but unfortunately his record in those fights is a dismal 1-5. Couture created a blueprint for stifling Vitor's explosiveness by fighting him along the cage and taking him to the ground. This style not only limits Belfort's biggest weapon, it also taxes his cardio. 5 of Vitor's last 7 fights have finished in the first round, so there are still questions about his conditioning. Johnson also has cardio issues, but I believe not cutting to 170 should help him to improve this problem. Rumble has an opportunity to stake his claim in the middleweight division. I don't expect you'll want to stand with a fresh Belfort. Look for him to use his wrestling to control the Brazilian, beat him up on the mat, and tire him out. When Belfort is sufficiently fatigued, then Johnson will look for the knockout. Here I go again, picking against another Brazilian in Rio, but I'm going to take Anthony Johnson to beat Vitor Belfort by knockout. In the main event of the night, Jose Aldo, 21, will put his featherweight title on the line against undefeated challenger 11-0 Chad Money Mendes. Now, Aldo has defended his title 4 times, including against Kenny Florian, easily his most high-profile opponent, while Mendes started his UFC career with a 2-0 record after going 4-0 in the WEC. Now, training with Team Alpha Male, Chad Mendes really couldn't ask for a better man to help him get ready for Aldo than Uriah Faber. At WEC 48, Faber faced Aldo for the title, losing a 5-round decision. Even though Uriah was thoroughly defeated, he still will be able to help Mendes to understand what fighting Jose is all about. Now, as far as making a prediction for this fight, what it really comes down to is, can Chad Mendes get Jose Aldo to the ground? Now, Mendes is a powerful wrestler and uses his skills to dominate his opponent. Although not an overly exciting style, it is incredibly effective. Over his WEC UFC career, Mendes has attempted 40 takedowns and landed 28 spread out over 6 fights. Mendes is a powerhouse, and the combination of his strength and technique make his shot incredibly tough to stop. He will shoot both from the outside and drive through his opponent, or get in tight and use his strength to power his adversary to the ground. As good as his wrestling is, his striking is still a work in progress. He will throw low kicks and try a few combinations, but in all reality, against Jose Aldo, anything he attempts standing will be to set up his shot, as trying to simply exchange with the champ would be incredibly counterproductive. Now, Chad Mendes will not be the first man to face Aldo with a game plan centered on takedowns. 4 of Aldo's previous opponents, Mike Brown, Uriah Faber, Manny Gambarian, and Kenny Florian, all tried to take the champ down, and they combined for a dismal 1 for 35. Kenny Florian was the only man to complete a takedown, and Aldo got back up almost instantly. Aldo has next-level takedown defense. The combination of his speed, physical strength, and overall skill make it difficult for his opponent to get their hands on him, and even harder to control him. Aldo is a BJJ black belt, so if he does get a takedown, he is far from unprepared. On the feet, Aldo has considerable power with 12 career knockouts. He effectively uses all 8 of his weapons, his hands, elbows, knees, and feet, and does so in a manner that leaves opponents wondering what hit them. See Aldo Swanson from WEC 50. Aldo's leg kicks decimated Faber, and his speed made it difficult for Uriah to capitalize on them for a takedown. The issue of cardio has crept into Jose Aldo conversation after he faded late against Mark Hominick. Florian attempted to exploit this with a little success by using constant pressure, and I expect a similar game plan from Mendes. Even if Aldo fades late and Mendes is able to get him to the ground, the challenger is not a proven finisher, and I expect Jose will already be ahead on the scorecards. We really haven't seen Chad Mendes force out of his comfort zone, and this is what Aldo will most certainly do. Jose has fought a little more conservative of late, with 3 decisions in his last 4, but Mendes has never tasted Aldo's type of power, and could crumple if and when he does. So I'll take Jose Aldo to defeat Chad Mendes by knockout and retain his featherweight title. Alright, welcome back to Kamikaze Countdown. One thing I want to touch upon quickly. I just said Jose Aldo knocked out Cub Swanson at WEC 50. I don't know why that popped into my mind. It's WEC 41. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. A flying knee to start the fight. game over for Cub Swanson. Now, probably by this point you've heard Christine Cyborg Santos, the featherweight champion in Strikeforce, women's featherweight champion in Strikeforce, has tested positive for steroids. And it's unfortunate. A lot of people kind of are saying, I told you so. But for Strikeforce, this actually kind of fixes the problem. Because up until this point, they said, what do you do with someone who's so dominant and so marketable, but has absolutely no one to fight against? And at this point, nothing. She sits on the shelf until her suspension's up, and it puts a lot of focus on the 135-pound division with Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey potentially on their way to a collision. You have Sarah Kaufman, the former champion, and Marlos Kunin also both waiting in the wings. So there's 2 or 3, maybe 4 very interesting matchups about to happen in the women's 125-pound division. 125, 135, sorry if I screwed that up. Either way, very interesting matchups there, and the Cyborg situation, unfortunate, but almost solves the problem for Strikeforce. And finally, before I go, Brock Lesnar, defeated at UFC 141, announced his retirement. I picked him to win that fight, but my prediction, no excuses, but it was based on the claim that Brock was saying he was 100% healthy. Clearly he was not. Alistair Overeem targeting his body, and how could he be in all reality coming back from such a devastating illness like diverticulitis? You're never the same after such a thing like that. And a lot of people are claiming Brock showed up for a payday. I don't know. When you're a big athlete like Brock was growing up through his collegiate wrestling, etc., it has to be shown to you that your career is over. You look at guys like Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture and these other guys. Chuck had to get knocked out over and over again before he finally said, yes, I'm finished. Same with Vanderlei Silva, who seems to be on that same course, just prolonged it a little bit recently. Brock got a couple of beatings and basically said, yeah, I'm finished. I'm going to walk off into the sunset. And I think that was a smart move on his point. I know he said he was going to fight one more time if he won for the title, but either way, some people, he's a polarizing figure. Some people like him, some people don't. I say thank you very much, Brock, for all the effort you put in. The 7 fights you did do in the UFC. You brought a lot of attention to the sport, and best of luck in everything you do from now on. Kamikaze Countdown. So those are my predictions for UFC 142, Aldo versus Mendes. Hopefully I do better. Last time we were in Rio, I really struggled. I think I'm going to turn it around with this event. As always, thank you very much to my sponsors and partners, sportsinteraction.com, MMAbettingodds.com, my new partner, cagefighter.co, and as always, MMA Crips. Again, thank you for hosting my video. So make sure you check all those sites out, and please, support them. And again, for the other sites I frequent, BloodyElbow.com, ShareDog, SBR Forums, MMA Core, MMA News, and all the rest of you. Thank you very much for letting my videos be posted, and all the comments I get from you guys. And as always, my YouTube followers, again, I appreciate you too. I get a number of pages of comments, and I like interacting, negative, good, bad, indifferent, either way. It's always fun. I look forward to seeing who makes comments. 4th round of the prediction tournament started with 32, down to 4 fantastic competitors. Good luck to all of you in the 4th round. I think that's enough for me. We have a jam-packed schedule on the horizon. It's getting exhausting. Kamikaze Overdrive, Scott Johnson. I'm out of here.